Hello and welcome to the DSP Project, the show all about music production and technology and stuff. I am your host Rupert Brown, reporting to you from a very cold London. The temperature has really dropped and it's started snowing out there. It's about -1 degree at the moment. It's really quite cozy. But this week we are carrying on, still talking about the effects rack. I got emails from a few of you wanting some more practical examples, so I've sat down and went through my 6 best favoritists uses for the effects rack. Now I did that, but it's come out quite long. It's sort of 25-30 minutes something, so I'm going to have to split it up over 2 episodes. So this week I'll give you the first 3 and next week we will do the last 3. And for those of you who don't know, we are of course giving away an Akai APC-20, made by Akai Professional. If you would like to win this, then head down to the dspproject.com/win. But now let's get started. Here I have 2 channels. I've got a drums channel, which is another Keijo Saka, and it's just a straight drum loop. And in channel number 2 here, I've quickly written a fresh bass patch, which isn't anything that's too interesting. And this is what I want to use to demonstrate to you my favorite uses for the effects rack. So starting over here with drums, number 1 is for parallel compression, or coming back to that wet dry thing I sort of already mentioned in a previous video, but I kind of want to cover that, really hit that one home for you. So let's say I want to compress these drums, and for the type of track that I'm working on, for whatever reason, I really like the sound of super over compressed drums. So let's say if we went overboard with this. Okay, so just for the record, I don't think that sounds particularly great, but there might be an instance where there is a call for that kind of sound. So let's say I want to keep that sound of the compression, but want to get some of the dynamics back. So what we can do is press Command G, and I'm going to pop out our chain list here, second mouse button, and select Create Chain. And I'm going to turn the volume right down on this one. So we've now got a compressed chain and a completely clean chain. So I'm going to listen to the compressed chain and slowly bring the volume up on our clean chain, and I'm just listening to the kick and waiting for the some of those dynamics to come back into the loop. So you can hear that we've still got the color of the compression, but we haven't made as much of a sacrifice as far as the dynamics and the definition of the kick. So that is one of the many uses for parallel compression or wet dry control. So moving on, my next favorite thing to use the effects rack for is for creating stereo effects. So let's say we take this, come over to the synth line here, and I'm just going to put a utility on here. I'm sure it should be pretty mono, but and pull the width down to 0. So this is basically ensuring that it's a completely mono signal coming out, and I've got so let's have a listen to that in mono. So now let's say I want to create really try and create a sense of stereo out of that mono signal. What I can do is a fairly simple trick. So first of all, if we slightly delay one channel, it sort of gives it sort of tricks the brain into making it sound like more of a stereo signal. So to do that, I'm going to use a simple delay. There it is. And I'm going to link the channels together, and for the sync I'm going to change it to time. So now we can actually set a time difference for the delay, and I want it to be completely wet, so we're only going to hear the delayed signal. So I'm going to highlight that and press Command G to create an effects rack, pop out a chain list again, and second mouse button, create chain. So our delay channel here, I'm going to pan over to hard left, and our unaffected chain I'm going to pan over to hard right. So let's have a look. What have I got this set at? I might just have a small delay, so let's have a listen to that. Now if you're listening to this on headphones or on your iPod or whatever, it's probably not going to make quite as a dramatic a difference as if you're listening to speakers. So if you really want to understand what's happening here, you kind of do need to listen to it on proper speakers. But so if we just now I'll just turn that effects rack off so we can have a listen to it without the effect. So hopefully if you're listening to that on speakers, you should hear it basically the sound go from the center image. So if you close your eyes, it sounds like it's coming from between the sort of dead center of your monitors to opening out right around you, and you can sort of you can play on that a lot more, this left-right chain thing. So for instance, you might want to do, let's say, a flanger. Okay, so let's put a flange on this channel. I'm just going to solo this, put this feedback, and we'll have maybe a shorter delay time on here. So with this little dot here, I'm controlling the amount of feedback and the delay time of the flange. And I want to make that wet dry. We'll just put a little bit in there. And now come over to our right channel and drop a flanger in here. It doesn't need to be a flanger, it could be another effect, but let's just say flanger. And I want to dial it in about the same, but I want a different level of feedback and a delay time. So sort of let's do a lot higher delay time, and let's have a listen to that. And finally, we'll just do again, have a listen to it dry and with the effect. So there you go. That is hopefully you can hear that. That's just one of the many tricks that you can do to pull an interesting stereo image out of a mono signal. So I'm going to delete that now and move on to the next, my next favorite, which would be multi-effects on a single knob. So let's just for a variety jump over to the actually now let's do it on the Alchemy, and say we want a combined effect that has a let's use the flanger again, and I'm going to push Command G to group that, pop out our chain here, and I want to have a flanger, and I want to have a, let's say, a saturator and a redux effect. Oops, I dropped that into that chain. I want this to be on, I want them to all each be on their own separate chain. So I'm just going to rename that. Okay, and I'll pop my little knob controls out here. So what I want to do here is I want this one part, as I move it, I want it to trigger different effects in different parts. This is particularly useful if you want to have if you've got a limited amount of pots on your controller, possibly, then you can sort of get the most bang for your buck. But also can be a very interesting creative tool, having been able to sort of switch between these different parts. So to do this, I'm going to use our chain selector, and I'm going to push Command A to select them all, drag them out here, right click, distribute ranges equally, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chain selector here, and I'm going to second mouse button map to macro control 1. So if we can just, now we could map this to our MIDI controller. So but that's going to be quite a stark difference. Okay, the Redux needs some settings so we can actually hear it. And then the saturator. I've got this kind of zoomed right in so you guys can see everything, but I can't even fit everything in the page. It's a bit annoying. Let's get rid of this knobs. It's saturation. I'll get there. So I'm just going to change this so you can actually hear it. Okay, so there's our effects. So we could just move this over between them now and use it just kind of like a selector of effects, but that's kind of it's kind of boring, and it's also quite a harsh jump between the different values. So what I'm actually going to do is I want to make these guys overlap by quite a bit, and then I'm going to start by dragging this first one out so that basically when the chain selector's at the start here, that I need one more chain in here actually. Which is going to be my clean chain. So I'm going to leave that there, clean chain, move that back so that we get a clean non-affected signal when the knob's at 0, and then as soon as we move it up, it starts bringing our effect up. And I'm just going to change these so that there's this like really large slopes as they overlap. The idea, of course, here being that they should blend a lot nicer. And if you watch the little tiny level bars here, you might even be able to see the signal slowly being added to one and reduced from another. So let's have a listen to that. The Redux. Okay, so you kind of get the idea there, but you might think, well, okay, that's all very well and good, but you've only got one chain selector here. What if I want to do this for all 8 knobs? Well, you can't really do that with what I've set up here. So to do that, basically, we select the effects rack and push Command G to group this, and then we've got a second set of macro controls. So I can now take this chain selector here. So if we call this master 1 or master, second mouse button on this chain selector, we can do map to master. Okay, so basically this entire effects rack just becomes the effects for that one pot. So if I untick all these, we just get this thin little bar. So that's all compressed, and we get all the goodness of that pot, and basically we just repeat that process again. So this is where it becomes useful having effects racks inside of effects racks. So I can basically duplicate this 8 times and map them to these separate macro controls. And so hopefully that kind of, if you can get your brain around that, you can understand you can get pretty deep with that. There's a lot you can do there. Please head down to theDSPproject.com, leave a message underneath this video. If you want, you can subscribe and get all future episodes, and that helps us out, so that'd be great. Or if you want to get a hold of me direct, you can send an email to inbox@theDSPproject.com. One last time, if you want to win it, theDSPproject.com/win. And next week we will be carrying on, and we'll do the next 3 uses for the effects rack. If you found those last ones remotely interesting at all, I think you're really going to like this next 3. So I'll see you next week.